everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Obsidian Twitch channel. My name is Eric Dorabella. I'm the community manager here at Obsidian. I'm seated with Josh and Adam, and we're going to have another Q&A session with you guys for Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. We got a lot of questions from Twitter and some off the forums, and we're going to go ahead and read through those questions first. And then if we have time at the end of the hour, we'll go ahead and respond to you guys in chat. So thank you guys. We have a lot of questions, and we'll do our best to go through all of them and hopefully get to you guys in chat. So thank you guys, and welcome Josh and Adam. Thank you for joining us.
Greetings.
Yeah, greetings.
And we're just going to go ahead and get right to it.
First of all, thank you to all of our backers for helping us hit 2.4 million, which is an amazing milestone.
We just hit it like 1 minute ago.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. We will have more stretch goals up soon for 2.8.
Yeah, pretty soon. We have an update actually going up very soon. It was just put together. Just to thank everyone for the $2.4 million stretch goal. We have a small announcement, a new item that we're going to be introducing to the campaign that I think all of you will be very excited about. Once that goes live, maybe we can talk about it. I don't want to spoil it quite yet, but it should be going live.
Cool people will be excited about it.
Yeah, should be going live in the next, hopefully, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, let's dive right in. Cotton Wolf. How are you going to handle watchers who are originally from Deadfire? As they should know more about the region than other characters, it would be easy to make them look like idiots if it were ignored. That's a good point. So, yes, this was something that we had to face and deal with on Fallout New Vegas, because some returning players knew a lot about the scenario, or the NCR and things like that, or they assumed, hey, my character should know more about this. One of the things that we've taken from Tyranny is their lore highlighting system. So when you have a character who's from the Deadfire, your character will speak as though they basically know what the heck is going on in this region, and we will use the lore highlighting more heavily there, because you as a player don't actually know the things that your character knows. So we hope that that makes the experience a little more intuitive and immersive. But you know, if you want to just sort of check on like, what is this guy talking about? You can always use that system to help you along.
Looking into the echo issues right now, guys.
Oh, echo. I'm sorry.
Okay. Moving on. As a Brazilian, I must ask, I'm not Brazilian, this person. As a Brazilian, I must ask, why not a Portuguese translation?
So, yeah, we discuss localization a lot, and we try to balance out trying to get localization and localized versions to every player possible out there. I know there's a lot of Brazilian players that love Pillars of Eternity and would like to play Pillars 2 in their native Brazilian Portuguese, and we want to do everything that we possibly can to get at least something for them. Hopefully we can announce something in the future, but we are discussing it. It does cost a lot of money to do localized versions, so we just have to balance out the cost versus the stretch goal and stuff like that. So we're running the numbers, and hopefully we can have something to announce during the campaign or after the campaign.
I do like to joke that one of our designers, Olivia Veras, who wrote Kana, she's from Brazil, and we like to joke that she'll do the entire translation, but that's not going to happen. All right, next question. Will Path of the Damned difficulty be balanced around a full party of optimized characters doing a completionist run? Optimized equals min-maxed.
Does not equal.
Does not equal min-max, oh yeah, I saw that, okay. Issue with Pillars of Eternity was very easy for full optimized parties at high level. The main focus for us in balancing is always going to be normal and hard. Easy, Path of the Damned, all that sort of stuff is not our main focus, because most people are going to play on normal and hard. That being said, we probably will do a little more play testing of Path of the Damned for Pillars 2. I think that the optimization sort of margins are a little bit tighter. So I think that the balance will be a little bit better for Path of the Damned overall. But I do want to say again that overall, the focus for us in balancing is usually going to be normal and hard as a first priority.
I just want to say that our next stretch goal is going to be Bareth's Blessings, so that's going to be our version of New Game Plus that I personally am really excited about. And so this is a thing that I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but in our one of our last updates, we announced this new feature for Pillars 2, and that's a new thing that we will hopefully will hit fairly soon. And throughout the game, you'll get achievements, and those will give you points. So when you re-roll your character or start a new game, you can spend those points to actually add additional challenges to make the game harder. So if you think either Path of the Damned isn't hard enough, or if you want just some other crazy additional challenge, one thing that we were throwing out is like a naked mode, so you can't even equip armor. Crazy stuff like that for those crazy players that just love that additional challenge. Hopefully we'll have some additional challenges in Bareth's Blessings.
Nice. I also want to say, some people have said, hey, did we misgender Bareth in the update? You're right that Bareth actually does appear in different manifestations that are male or female. In this case, it's the Pallid Knight, so it is a she.
It was intentional.
Come on. Okay, next question. Will there be random loot in Deadfire? In Pillars of Eternity, it can be very frustrating to be able to get very good pieces of equipment only via random loot. Yes, there will be some random loot. However, the more influential pieces of random loot will not be randomized. They will just be placed. So if you want boots of speed or things like that, those will probably not be put on a randomized list. But we still will have some randomization. All right. Can we get David Warner as Aethys' voice actor in Deadfire? Pretty please.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. I don't know what David Warner is up to these days. I did see him on Penny Dreadful. He was horribly underused, unfortunately. I was very stoked to see him there, and he was only there for a very small amount of time. Kind of a bummer. Good question. I don't know. No idea.
We'll look into that.
We will look into that. Is anyone on the team using community character builds for their Pillars of Eternity games? Which builds are the most popular? I haven't polled other people at the studio. I usually just make whatever goofball sort of characters I want. However, I do look at a lot of build strat guides. I also look at build guides that people make on YouTube just to see what people are making and what they perceive as being particularly strong or like particularly weak builds. Sometimes they're really dead on. Sometimes they're finding things that we hadn't considered. And sometimes there are things that we think are really good that either aren't really good or people don't think are really good just because of how we presented them. So we do look at a lot of those build guides, which are very interesting, whether they appear on the Obsidian forums. I know that those are really popular on our own forums or on various YouTube channels and things like that. Will Deadfire have shader-based anti-aliasing options? MSAA left many jaggies in Pillars, Adam.
Good question. So as you can tell from our gameplay videos, we spent a lot of time improving the graphic and art fidelity of Pillars of Eternity. And the game right now looks amazing. We've spent a lot of time enhancing the shaders of the game, all the way down to stuff like anti-aliasing and those other graphics features that I know graphics junkies love to fiddle with. Our graphics programming guru, Tim Truesdale, has added a few new anti-aliasing features to the game that does make everything appear a lot more smooth and nice looking. So I feel pretty confident that we will ship with good anti-aliasing in Deadfire.
Cool. Any plans to support Vulkan with a K for
Vulkan with a K.
for further CPU optimizations?
Right now we don't have plans to support Vulkan.
Okay. Any plans for AI that scales with levels? If I recall correctly, Tyranny had something similar. Even in Pillars 1, we did have AI that would change based on level of difficulty. So certain enemies or creatures would use certain abilities either more often or just sometimes they wouldn't use them at all if they were on a lower level of difficulty. Usually it's level of difficulty based, not character level based, but we did already have that in Pillars. Deadfire's AI system has been completely rewritten. It's a lot more robust. We will continue to do level of difficulty based behavioral changes because those are some of the most interesting ways to scale behavior as opposed to just bumping numbers up. Sometimes we will bump numbers up just to make it work with the RPG systems, but for the most part, our difficulty scaling is based around the composition of an encounter and the behavior of creatures in an encounter.
I have a question for you, Josh. How much have you discussed with the community about empowered empowerment.
I haven't really talked about empower very much. Briefly, so empowering is what you use on your, everybody can use empower. Everybody has a certain number of empowers per rest. You can use them on abilities to make them more powerful. I should say all active abilities in Pillars of Eternity do scale with your main class's power source. So as your wizard gets higher level, your middle as minor missiles get additional missiles. Your fireballs do more damage. Things that bounce or rather jump from character to character get more jumps. And an empowering is it treats you as though you are 3 power levels higher when you use that ability. So it makes it much, much stronger than normal. Yeah, and that is across the board for all characters. Is that what you, okay, there you go.
Yeah, we just have a lot of stuff in Pillars too that I don't like. There's so much new stuff that I think a lot of the cooler features that might get glossed over, but I think something like empowering abilities really will change the feel of combat for people.
Any plans to allow the transfer of skins from one piece of armor or weapon to another? No. What I will say though, because that answer is disappointing and I don't want to disappoint you too much, is we do plan on allowing people to toggle their helmet and cloak slots off if they want. So if you have like the really cool hat effect, but you don't really want to wear a hat or you don't like that hat, you can turn that off, and the same thing goes for cloaks as well. So we will have the ability to optionally turn that stuff off. Also, I will say that with our new material system, the gear looks much, much better. I mean, you can probably see a lot of that in our videos, but like it really, in game, like it really looks very, very good. All right. Will we see further developments regarding the Ingwithan phylactery from the White Marsh 1? Maybe.
Maybe.
In case you're planning to introduce new HUD elements, minimap, etc., please make sure that they're optional, as well as any percentage cleared stats in the UI, in regards to a suggestion over at FIG. Exploring by numbers is no fun. I don't think we're planning on introducing anything that's really a dramatic change in Pillars. No sort of information that we hadn't displayed before. I think our new armor system using penetration, knowing the penetration on your attack versus armor, if you already know that armor rating, we will display that. So you know, like, oh crap, I'm not gonna, this is horrible, like I'm way underpowered for this. We will display things like that, but I don't think we're gonna be changing
the HUD very much.
Yeah.
One thing that we have done, and we always continue to do this, is improve the combat log and improve the output of the combat log and like the tooltip on the combat log, and hopefully our next revision will have better formatting and more information for you to figure out exactly what's going on in combat.
Okay, I'm going to take a question out of order because it's come up a lot. An Infinitron question.
Uh-oh.
Forgive me. How are you going to make this not spammy like high-level spellcasters before Spell Mastery in Pillars of Eternity 1, Josh? How?
How? Josh, how?
Action economy. That's how, my friend. So, one thing that was difficult to balance in Pillars of Eternity was cast time or ability activation time versus like how characters moved around the battlefield. And something that actually goes back to the Infinity Engine. It can be very frustrating to throw around AoEs that have long cast times, because by the time the spell is done being cast, people have moved around so much that, you know, it's not really hitting where you want it to be. Also, what this meant is in terms of like the amount of time that an individual action took, an individual spell, we didn't want it to be incredibly powerful because you could just chain cast those spells a bunch. So that led to things like our fireballs being very fast casting, but not very strong. So we're moving toward spell casts that are a little bit on the longer side. They can be interrupted and lost as a result of that. But also we're going to have a retargeting cursor for targeted spells. So we're going to allow you to retarget to individual people, especially if that target dies or moves, and we're going to allow you to retarget an AoE before the spell goes off. We're doing that so that we can have these longer cast times, basically having the casters feeling like they're doing actions that take a little bit longer but are a little more influential, but there's an element of risk involved in that. So you might want to have your caster protect themselves from being interrupted. You might want to form like a wall of a tank in front of that character, but I think that will change the feeling of how casters work, and it will prevent people from just spamming stuff out over and over again, because they're really performing actions over a longer period of time. So
incline. That's what he said, incline.
Nice. So that is the idea there. Sorry to go out of order, but a lot of people have asked that question. We already did that, and I'm dumb.
Done with page 1.
I'm dumb. Okay. Wow, there are a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
Thought there were
Awesome.
3 pages, actually 6. Could you talk a bit about the core conflicts in Deadfire beside the giant Audra statue stepping on everyone? I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff, but I think that in our lore update that Paul Kirsch did, which is up on the Fig site now, right?
Yep.
He talked about the core power factions in the Deadfire. The Juana are the native culture, and they are Amawa. They've been there for a very, very long time. And there is Audra, which is from Pillars 1. Audra grows all over the Deadfire. I'm sorry, it grows all over the Deerwood, but in the Deadfire, there are special veins of Audra called Luminous Audra that is really suffused with a ton of magical energy, and it's naturally occurring here, and it's only naturally occurring here. And it had been here for a very long time, but people didn't really know of any practical use for it. And recently, animancers learned how to refine it in a way that makes it kind of like not so much a potion of youth, but it restores like vitality and vigor. And so it's become a very precious commodity. And once that precious commodity was found, colonial powers like the Valians and the Raotaians started moving in to try to take some of those resources. And then in addition to that, we also have a lot of pirates flying around. Many of them, not literally flying, but they are part of the Principi. And the Principes on Patria are these old Valians who were basically dispossessed of their lands and titles, and they've wound up sort of as pirates roaming around the Deadfire, and they're kind of just preying on whomever they can get their hands on. So that's sort of like that's the main sort of like political sort of climate that you and this large statue of Aethys come into. On a scale of Columbus to King Leopold II, how much of a colonial jerk can you be? Probably not quite as bad as Leopold II, which is, he's like up near the top of, that's a really great range though. Columbus, pretty bad. Leopold II, completely awful. Probably not that horrible, but, colonialism and imperialism and sort of, setting up colonies and taking resources are a part of the power struggle of these major factions in the world. So you will have a role in kind of navigating through that, and then some of that will involve kind of pushing people to the side or elevating other people up. What does double VO mean? Twice what? All crit path, all companion speech, voiced word count now versus after goal?
I can probably take that one. So double the VO for us, we actually are just doubling the VO budget. So we had, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but we had a VO budget for Pillars 1, and we're carrying that over to Pillars 2 as a ballpark of what our VO budget should be. And we decided that we're just going to, and Fergus approved this with the stretch goal, we're just going to double the VO budget. So it's going to be twice as much. So if you take the amount of lines that we recorded in Pillars 1 and basically just double it, it'll probably be a good indication of how much VO we're going to have in the game.
And to elaborate on that, as writers, we're also being more sensitive to the kind of flow of conversations. We know that, and this is something actually that Chris Avalon advised us to do. It was a little too late to do a lot about it, but not having narrative text in the middle of a spoken line or at the beginning of a spoken line, that gets really disruptive to the reading flow. So we're trying to be much more conscious of avoiding stuff like that when we know it's going to be a voiced conversation. So it should flow more naturally. You should have fewer jarring moments where you go like, is the line missing? Did it just cut out? We want to avoid all that
So it's going to be more consistent across the board.
Yeah. Will gods and orders, meaning priest deities and paladin orders, alter how those play the same as subclasses? Does the number of them pull out that scope? Yes. So priests, their subclasses are essentially deities. Paladins are essentially their orders are subclasses for them. Does the number of them put that out of scope? It depends. Like, we want to support all of the deities and the orders that we supported in the first game. So the overall scope of individual changes might be more comparable to Pillars 1. They're less likely to make radical changes to them, but that will depend at the end on all the different subclasses that we're doing. We might push those guys out a little bit. They might have a little bit more than some of the other classes, because we do want to make sure that we're supporting all the options that you had, at the very least, in Pillars 1. Most players online seem to dismiss the gods after Pillars 1. Do you plan to challenge this idea? I think the gods plan to challenge that idea. They certainly think they're still very important. So, there you go. Do you know yet whether you'll use Pillars 1 or Pyrenees? Pyrenees. By the way, if you combine Pillars of Eternity and Tyranny,
you get a Pyrenees.
You get the Pyrenees. It's right in between France and Spain. Do you know yet whether you'll use Pillars 1 or Tyranny's method of detecting hidden things for Deadfire? Have a nice day. So we will, you don't have to be in scouting mode to detect things. It doesn't reduce your chances of detecting things. And we're basing that detection off of perception because that's just more intuitive to people. So that's what we're doing. So I think everybody will be happy with that. Is it possible to have Divinity-like environmental effects and combos with the current engine? If it is, would you consider it? It is possible. We are doing some of that stuff. It's not as big of a focus for us. Divinity makes it a very, very big focus of their games. We do have environmental keywords like fire or water. We do have things like barrels that are actually placed objects in the
one thing that is really hard to catch in the trailer is there's an exploding barrel in the desert, and you can destroy those in different ways. Some of them have oil, and like you can set the oil on fire.
There are oil barrels, there are gunpowder barrels. There are also like environmental destructibles, like an alchemy lab that will, like if you blow it up, it'll cause, bad things to happen. You also can set barrels on fire, but they don't explode right away. And if there's a water effect can actually put that fire out. So it's not to the level, like Divinity really, that's like a big, big focus for them. We did want to make the environment feel a little more alive and reactive in this game. We did a little bit of that in Icewind Dale 2 as well with barrels and little things like that. So we do want to increase that as well.
Okay, where are we?
Here, Igor.
Will
I be able to recruit the meanest companions and then make them good people by the end of Deadfire?
I love that question.
Probably not. Everybody can change. The sort of range of a person's capability for change is based on the individual character. It all depends on the individual character. It's usually not from the perspective of take a mean person and make them nice, but really just kind of altering their way of viewing the world. You can alter people. We do have support now in our voice sets. This is something that I actually like a lot. Our voice sets now have conditional support for different states in the world. So for example, Adair, if he starts disliking you, which holy moly, like if you do stuff to make Adair mad at you, you're probably a pretty awful person. His barks will actually change. So he'll say different things to you when you give him commands and stuff like that. So we can have people actually change their voice sets. Also, Aloth, if you, at the end of Pillars 1, or if during the course of Pillars 1, you told Aloth to continue to allow Isilmir to be a part of who he is, when he drops below 50% health, Isilmir, he'll actually start using Isilmir's barks in combat, which is pretty cool. So we do have stuff like that that can reflect either choices you've made or ways that you've changed the character over the course of the adventure. Any chance for German VOs in Deadfire? We filthy Germans love our CRPGs and our language. You should know that. I do know that. VOs are real expensive though.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
It's very expensive. It's very hard. It's very hard to localize VO because it's one of the more expensive things.
We don't plan on doing that right now.
Yeah, we don't plan on doing it. It's such a huge expense for us. And yes, we know that especially French and German markets are very big for us. I will say I did think it was very cool that Mercy in Overwatch, because they did localized VO, and actually Mercy's voice, it wasn't quite Swiss German, but it was kind of Swiss German, which is kind of neat that they had that little touch in there. So that doesn't have anything to do with us because we're not going to do it, but I did like that. Will AR get more fleshed out in Pillars of Eternity 2 in general, world map, etc.? Always curious about the rest of the world. Yeah, we always want to use each of these games as a way not only to talk about the world that's right there and also talk about the larger world. I mean, Deadfire was a place that was described in Pillars 1 in very general terms, and now we have a chance to build out for it. I think it inspires people's imagination. They sort of think about all the different places in the world and the way that they can be, where they can come from and stuff like that. So yes, we always want to build stuff
Yeah,
out.
and we have the next guidebook in the campaign, and I'm sure that we'll be writing a lot more lore and filling out not only the Deadfire but other regions of the world as well in that guidebook.
Yeah. Have there been any plans or ideas of expanding the IP further beyond PC games, tabletop RPG?
Stay tuned. Like, just give us like
Listen up.
a few minutes.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Keep your eyes peeled to the next update.
Yes.
So yes, there are plans.
Yes. Are there any other technical goals you'd love to make happen beside the announced graphical, etc. improvements?
Ooh, a programming question.
There have been other programming questions.
So technical goals, I think for us, we really wanted to improve just the overall player experience. I know that load times were, to me, unacceptable in Pillars 1, and so we're doing our best to make sure load times between interiors are very seamless. So that's very important to us. The other technical goal, a big one for us, is we refactored our save load system as well. So save load will be 1, more stable, 2, a lot faster, and just overall it's better for the team and better for you, the player. We did do a complete refactor of the AI system as well, and so hopefully with the AI customization and scripting that we'll have in Deadfire, that will be something that you can fiddle around with and play with, and create your own custom behaviors for your own companions. And so those were like the main goals for us. So I think a lot of that stuff will shine through as well as the graphics improvements that we made in Deadfire.
Someone asked what language is used. C++?
What languages do we use? We use C#. That's we're using Unity 5.5 right now, and that uses C#. And so I would say 99% of the stuff that we write is written in C#.
Cool. Will there be new subraces? Probably not. I wouldn't say never, but no.
We've discussed it, but yeah.
It's a lot of work. I will say that all of our subraces are being remodeled and textured. They look really nice.
Oh, the Death Godlike.
The godlike look,
Ooh,
incredible. I mean, I think you guys saw the fire godlike in the
video.
the video. Dimitri Berman loves Satan, basically, and so like any sort of dark, nasty stuff, he loves doing. So like the fire godlike are really good. The death godlike look amazing. There are a few other like subraces we went back to and looked at, and we're like, these could be better. And so there's a lot of effort that's gone into them. They look really nice. So he does. He loves Satan. Could it be feasible being able to arrive in different hubs of Deadfire after the prologue? For example, different start locations. No. I mean, it's possible. Yes, we're not doing that. But what I will say is that our game world is much more open for exploration than the world in the Deerwood was. So without going into too much detail about that, our focus was to open the world up earlier to you for fun. So yes, not starting in different locations, but opening the world up earlier so that you have much more freedom. Also, I put a lot of effort, which annoys the narrative designers, allowing people to do things out of order. So if you want to go explore and do crazy stuff, I try to make sure that you absolutely can do that stuff. Where am I? Oh yeah. Is the game in an advanced enough stage that we can expect footage of someone actually playing during the campaign? Well,
all the footage.
That was someone actually playing the game.
Yeah. So all that footage was actually gameplay.
Yeah, we don't have the UI in there because we just generally don't have UI in the
in gameplay,
in trailers.
Yeah.
But that's all gameplay.
Yeah, we're not quite at the point where we can just show extended gameplay footage. There's a lot of bugs and just like really janky stuff in the game that we would like to polish up before we show you guys. But like the game's fully playable. We have a lot of content in the game that is completely playable, basically at an alpha stage.
Yes. Can you tell us what choices changed the various endings in Pillars 1? Wiki seems unsure on Adair and Kana. Oh, I mean, I'm sorry, but I probably can't recite those off the top of my head. Jeez.
Can you tell us choice?
Like what specific things make?
I can't. I don't know I don't know. I'm not sure about Kana.
Yeah. If someone can make a note for me or remind me later, I'll try to look into the Adair and Kana ones. But yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry. Will playing with level scaling off mean a lot of level 5 side quests that give enough XP to give us to 14? Well, it's a difficult balancing act. Like, we want people to be able to do a lot of side content, and we don't want it to feel like it's a waste of their time. So we try to make the XP, we actually did in Pillars try to make the XP for side quests proportionally lower, a lot lower than it was for the main quests. But it's a difficult balancing act. Like, we always want the player to feel like they're being rewarded for doing stuff. But if they're exhaustive in what they do, they're going to jack their levels up. We have a more comprehensive scaling system for players that want to have the content scale to their level. But yeah, I mean, we're going to try again in terms of balancing stuff. We don't want our XP rewards to get so low that it feels like a waste of time. We do try to make the side quests give usually slightly better gear, or maybe even significantly better gear, so it feels like, oh, well, I didn't really get that much XP, but I got this sweet suit of armor or this grimoire or something like that. So we'll try that a little bit more. It wasn't quite where we wanted to be for Pillars, but there you go. I was playing Tyranny before and got stuck in an early area because I couldn't find the exit, and found others got stuck at said area as well. Is a system that points players to the objective if they've been in an area for an extended amount of time? This is always sort of on us. So the answer is no. We need to make our quest objectives very clear. We need to make our level objectives very clear. And we need to, on our mini-map, show like, these are entrances, these are exits, these are places of note that you've walked by. We do that because we want the players to sort of engage mentally in what's going on. If they can't figure things out, that's our fault. So sorry for anything that was unclear, but it's something that we take seriously in terms of like, whenever I play through a quest, if I see an objective and I say like, if I didn't know how this quest was supposed to flow, this objective would not tell me clearly what I'm supposed to be doing. So we try to be very diligent on designers and making sure like, this really better be very clear about what you're supposed to do. Yeah. So,
and especially after if you stop playing for a few days and reload your game and read your journal, like, we want to make sure that you have exact details to go to the next stage of the quest based off the journal entry.
Yeah. Where was I? Is it? Oh, wait. Oh, that was the one okay. Please go into more detail regarding Zbareth's blessings. Will it feel like only a ladder run is the real difficulty? Like a later run, do you mean? I think later run is what you mean. Please go into more detail regarding Zbareth's blessings. Will it feel like only a later run is the real difficulty?
I don't think so. I think a lot of those are just like more like gimmicky. I wouldn't say gimmicky, but like bonuses for just like really crazy challenges. A lot of them will be benefits as well. They're not just all challenges, but like things that might help you, or just extra little things that on your second or third playthrough of the game, like, you just want to try out something different. I think that's the main point of Zbareth's blessings. Or say if you get through Act 1 and you don't care for your character, or you'd like to re-roll a different character and you just want to start off with a few more copper coins, like, you can activate Zbareth's blessings and add copper coins that will hopefully get you through the first part of the game quicker.
By the way, Barbarian Fighter is Brute. That's the the multi-class name for the Barbarian Fighter. Will the social dynamics of Deadfire be more informed by post-colonialism than the Deerwood was? No, because it's not post-colonial. It is actually in the process of being colonized. Those dynamics are much more at the forefront of the struggle. The sort of power dynamics of the Deadfire are really caught up in this relationship between the native cultures and the colonial powers, and the pirates, of course. To what extent do you consider Deadfire to be a continuation of the themes of Pillars 1 versus a new set of themes?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of both. Like, we're not going to completely just shift gears and say, like, you know what, the setting really isn't about this at all. There are certain elements, there are certain thematic elements that are sort of core to the setting as a whole. Faith, personal identity, things like that are sort of really a core part of the setting. But there is more, like I said, there is more of a focus on sort of colonialism and things like that that have to do with the sort of the power dynamics of this area. So it's a mixture of both things. We don't have a crisis like the Hollowborn crisis, so that should feel very different. It's a different set of sort of problems, but there is the high level issue, which is the nature of the gods and how they interact with mortals and things like that. Will there be a yes man like option in Deadfire to avoid siding with any of the factions? Yes.
Yes, man.
Yes. How many dogs are there? Can I get a corgi? There are a bunch of dogs. I can't remember how many. We have a bunch of pets.
Different types of pets.
We have a lot of pets, a lot of cats, a lot of dogs, a lot of other things. I don't remember how many. Sort of non-standard dogs, whether they're corgis or wiener dogs or Italian greyhounds or Great Danes, those are harder to do. I wouldn't rule them out. I know that we've at least had, maybe you're the corgi requester from the first game. There was someone who really wanted a corgi in the game. Yeah,
those are harder to do because corgis walk differently than standard dogs, so you have to do a different animation set for it.
Yes. Are you hoping to have more quest reactivity than in Pillars 1, especially with regard to factions? Yes, much more. Reactivity has been something that we keep drilling into people, tell me what the short-term reactivity of this quest is, tell me what the long-term reactivity of this quest is, show me how different classes can interface with this this quest, or different backgrounds, or different races, or how the companions will chime up and cause something to get derailed in the quest. That's a bigger focus for us.
Yeah, and if it isn't apparent already, the factions are a big part of what we're doing with Deadfire.
Yes. If I have a multi-class Cypher Rogue, will my companion's attacks raise my focus?
Multi-class Cypher Rogue.
My companion's attacks raise your focus?
I'm not sure what...
I'm not sure you... This might be wrong, but I'm going to guess you are wondering if your sneak attacks will raise your focus. Yes. But there are probably going to be certain limitations on exactly how broad. For example, weapon damage was supposed to be sort of the foundation of what got sneak attack bonuses in Pillars 1, and that will be the way it is in Pillars 2. So you will get bonuses off of that, and that will help bump your focus more quickly. But it's not going to be, we're not going to multiply your entire damage with all bonuses. Also, it's going to be more progressive. So when your rogue starts out, their weapon-based damage bonus is lower than later, because it's all based off of the base weapon type. So, if you're doing, 8 to 12 points of damage with a weapon, you're going to get a higher percentage increase of that base damage in your sneak attack later on. So taking a little dip of one class will be beneficial, but not as crazy as it might be if you were using Pillars 1 levels, sort of class builds. Are backgrounds in? If yes, what form and shape? Backgrounds work fairly similarly to Pillars 1. I don't think we're expanding them a whole lot. I think we might have moved a few things around in terms of what weapons or outfits or things people get, but for the most part, backgrounds work the same way. We try to be a little more cognizant of using them in conversations. But yeah, overall, they're pretty much the same way that they were before. Any special treatment for raiders, sailors, sailing merchants, or slaves from Deadfire Archipelago? Like I said before, if you're from the Deadfire Archipelago, your character will tend to know things about that setting. And if you have a specific background that ties into that, where we can, where it is possible, we will try to branch based off of that. But obviously, we can't go crazy with that stuff, but we do want to make you feel like, yes, I am from this place, I am a person in this place, and the game reflects that. Do you plan new story arc talents for PCs and companions in Deadfire? Certainly having story talents for the PCs. Companions, it is possible. It depends on how wild and crazy we get with the companion relationships. That is something that we want to do. Yeah. If the list of races is the same, what changes can we expect in terms of reactivity? One thing that we know a lot of people had mentioned is getting more reaction to the strange races, like whether it's a pale elf or a godlike, having those characters, people reacting a little more frequently to them. Obviously, it's going to get old really fast and not fun to write if every single character in the world freaks out when a godlike character appears. But it's certainly something that we want to emphasize more. We just don't want to go, like, if every single conversation starts with someone going like, oh my God, I can't believe it, it's going to get tiring and not fun to write. The Deadfire archipelago spreads across a range of climates together with dynamic weather. It sets up the mood of varying environments and effects. Can you tell us more how that influences Pillar's gameplay? Also, whether it plays a part in the game's narrative, if you can talk about it. So gameplay-wise, we have a bunch of B priority features related to weather influencing gameplay.
Yeah,
that wasn't the focus of why we did weather, though. So we wanted to do dynamic weather largely to make the setting feel more alive and the scenes feel much less static. So the primary purpose of them is mostly for mood and aesthetic. We have ideas for that stuff, but we want to see how people feel about them in the game. If it really feels like, there should really be more gameplay effects associated with it, that's something we can pursue, but it wasn't a focus of ours. There are portions of the story where the dynamic weather is a part of a quest, or it's a part of a critical story moment. And in those cases, we will use that much more heavily as part of how the scene and the story plays out.
Yeah, but with the weather system, we can add status effects to the party in different weather conditions, but we're still exploring, like, how does that play out, and how does the game feel with that feature in.
So scripted interactions are supposed to be different and incorporate portraits, if I recall correctly. Can you elaborate on the changes and improvements? Are we going to do an update on any of that stuff?
We haven't really talked about that yet.
Let me see if I can break down the basics of it. So one of the main things that you'll notice right away in our new scripted interaction layout is that on the left-hand panel, which is where all of the text appears, on the bottom of the screen you have all of your character portraits. Now these aren't your painted character portraits, but these are the watercolor line drawing versions of your character portraits. Those are used when you want to select someone to perform an action. So that's actually integrated directly into the interface. It makes picking people to do things less clumsy. Also, if you hover on the portraits of those characters, you will see all of their attributes and all of their skills, which makes, like, if you see that something is probably going to require someone with a high athletics, you can just look through the characters and see who actually has the highest athletics instead of going like, I think it's Adair, maybe Pallegina, I don't know. So that is greatly improved. Also, when you actually pick actions and there's a check that happens, the top of the interface will display the person performing it, whether it was a success, a partial success, or a failure. So you can see like, oh, okay, like I actually passed that. Usually the description makes it obvious, but not always. So that is a new feature that I think helps with the flow quite a bit. We know that people really like our scripted interactions, but we found that lacking those certain interface features made things kind of frustrating and clumsy. And on the back end, we've made them much easier to author. That was something that was also very time consuming for us. We want to use scripted interactions a lot, and we want them to be very reactive to the player's party. So we did that. Oh, another thing is that in some cases, individual characters perform actions, but in many cases, it's like the whole party can assist someone in performing an action. And in those cases, we actually allow other party members to contribute bonuses to that character. So if you have a bunch of characters that all have athletics, you can get a really massive score. Like, that's how you chose to build your party. So we don't want those characters to feel redundant or like their skills are wasted. So if you want to be the party that makes every athletics check in the game, then there you go.
I also believe if the party is split, they can't participate in the scripted interaction, and then they get grayed out on the party bar. Yeah, there
are some cases where, like, if you have, for example, a character that sneaks up to a place to perform a scripted interaction, there's a minimum distance or a maximum distance they can be away to be part of it. So if you have one character that sneaks all the way across the map to do a scripted interaction, that is the only person that's doing it. So good times.
And just so you guys know, we're planning on showing that off fairly soon. There's a couple little bits of polish that we want to add to the... Okay. There's a couple little things of polish that we want to add to it, but we should be showing that interface off fairly soon.
Cool.
All right, you guys, we have 15 minutes left in the stream, so I want you guys to have an opportunity to talk with Adam and Josh. So we're going to go ahead and answer questions from you guys. We'll do our best to answer them all. So go at it, guys.
So I'll answer one right away. At the end of Pillars of Eternity, if you take certain actions in Pelagia's quest, the Deerwood goes to war with the Valiant Republics.
Where to go? Go in slow mode. Nice.
Will this be reflected in Pillars 2 beyond Pelagina and her reactions? It will be reflected a little bit, but it's the Deerwood is not a major like sort of force, colonial force in this area. So there are things that can be continuing to go on between the Deerwood and the Valiant Republics, but they're not really a focus in the Deadfire because they're just, that's very far away, and there aren't Deerwoodens here to be making trouble.
Okay, where are we?
Is the Barrett's Blessing feature entirely optional, or do you have to spend the unlocked reward points on something?
Completely optional.
Yes.
Like if you don't want to mess around with Barrett's Blessings, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's an optional. Yeah. That's New Game Plus. Like you always have the option of New Game. In Pillars 1, you could hoard loot to stash and just go back to town to get rich, effectively making currency a non-issue from very early in the game. Will there be a more restrictive expert option in Pillars 2 that cuts you off from the stash entirely, or anything else to keep the value of coins at bay? That's not a problem with you being able to take everything out of a dungeon. I mean, we could restrict that and you could still go back and take everything else. The issue is that the economy is not really well balanced for that purpose. So we've tried to be more diligent about finding effective drains and cost sinks in the economy, but limiting the stash doesn't really limit that at all. It's like a diligent player can just go back and take all that stuff. There's no obstacle for them. So yeah, we just have to balance it better. Regarding multiclassing, previous statements make it seem like both classes will get access to spells and abilities based on the level of the highest class. Is this actually true, or do you need to level up each class to get further access to an ability tree? Each power source has its own level, so they will continue to advance. So for example, if you are a rogue wizard, which I believe is a spellblade, if you are a rogue wizard, you will have points in Guile, which is the power source for rogues, and Arcane, which is the power source for wizards. Now, if you only take a few level in Wizard, you will continue to get little teeny bits and pieces of points in the Arcane pool over time. It's going to lag behind Guile if you don't put any points in it, or if you don't advance the Wizard class, but you're still advancing it. So it will go up very slowly, and you can still take things from that class, but yeah, it's just, it lags behind. So if you don't give it any attention, it gets a little bit better, but not that much better.
Where are we?
Will Deadfire further explore how different cultures and individuals understand the cycle of souls and what it means for personal identity or obligations to future generations? Yes. The main native culture in the Deadfire is the Juana. And the Juana, as Paul Kirsch said in his update, they have a caste system, and they believe that people are born into their castes. And that, that the process of being born into a caste is based on spiritual lineage. And some of that is sort of like more or less legit, and some of it is kind of manipulated by movers and shakers within the society. So you will see elements of that play out both in the Juana culture, also some cultures that are less sort of tradition bound, like the Valiant Republics, that are much more, in their minds, progressive. They, kind of view themselves as pioneers in, animancy. They're kind of the humanists of the setting. So you will see more of that. Are we going to get new voice lines in Deadfire? And if so, will they be more diversified, such as in Icewind Dale 2? I don't know if you mean more lines per set or more sets.
Probably both.
Probably both. We have more lines in each individual set, and we'll probably have more voice sets. Will the PC have idle animations like companions have?
Yes.
Yes, so we will have a few different sort of personality types that you can pick for your PCs.
I don't know how many we have, but there's like sassy, and there's a couple different stances. So when you're in Paper Doll or idling, the PC will transition into that stance for extra personality customization.
With extra VO goal reach, any chance for extra people of color voice options for the Watcher? I think just if we have more voice sets, period, that's something that we can look into. Any chance you beautiful people might reconsider the party size limit change for someone like me who plays these games more for the story than the combat? Having more companions with me is always preferable. I love you guys either way. Thanks for making Pillars 2. We didn't move to 5 party members like haphazardly. It's a pretty big change. We have fewer companions, and we're trying to make them a lot deeper than they were in Pillars 1. We also know that if you have a ranger, for example, you already have six things to control. and that compared to the Infinity Engine games, usually characters have more active things to do. So barring some really massive, like, wow, it just fundamentally is really awful, we're probably going to stick with 5 characters. Sorry. Is stat bonus suppression, except for the highest value, still a thing in Deadfire? So on equipment, we don't do suppression anymore. What we do instead is stats only get bonuses from certain slots. So you might find boots that give a dex bonus, and you might find gloves that give a dex bonus, but you're never going to find anything in a belt slot, a head slot, a neck slot that gives a dex bonus. They'll all add together, but you're never going to find more than like 2 slots worth of items. Active ability stacking, that will still be a thing, but that's usually much easier to sort of figure out what's going on. Like if you cast 2 spells, only the most powerful active effect on a certain stat will actually apply.
Did he answer my big head question?
I don't know what the big head
No,
question is.
he didn't answer it. Question, will there be a Hold the Line Starship Troopers style happening where Pulpavir tries to invade your island and ship? We'll probably have more information on that down the line. Wizard pointy hats, will we have wizard pointy hats?
I don't know
We
what
have
our
pirate hats.
We have pirate hats, but I don't know if we have pointy hats yet.
Yeah, I don't think we have a wizard pointy hat yet.
Will there be more puzzles or
Puzzles.
quests which involve puzzles in the vein of those in Legend of Grimwalk? Yes, we do have puzzles. I mean, it's not like a huge focus, but yes, we do have
probably not as complicated as Grimrock, but we do have puzzles.
Yeah, most of those puzzles take place in our scripted interaction sequences. Any chance of throwing weapons? It's not really a focus for us right now. Will we get an expanded list of gods for priests to choose from? Probably not. We want to make sure that the deities that we're supporting actually get enough differentiation to make them cool. If we say like, hey, you get all 11, that would make it pretty rough. It's possible we could expand them, but it's not likely.
Dragon Age like customized AI. Yes, that was one of our stretch goals. We are looking at Dragon Age for inspiration on that feature.
And Final Fantasy XII and other things. With perception replacing mechanics detection mechanic, how will skills change? Do you plan on adding more skills? Yeah, we added a whole bunch of them. We now have we have active skills that give you they can be used directly either in combat or during core gameplay to do things, like sleight of hand. For everyone who wanted pickpocket, here you go. You got sleight of hand, stealth, athletics. We have all these things. And then we also have a bunch of skills that are called passive skills that are primarily used in conversation and scripted interactions. We expanded these because we want people to feel a little more invested in the specifics of how their characters are skill-wise. So something like lore is very broad. Something like metaphysics is much more specific. It's related to understanding how the souls and the nature of souls works in the setting. So we have expanded those quite a bit. One of our major concerns was if you have skills that give you gameplay bonuses and then you have skills that give you really just kind of flavor stuff in conversations and SIs, how do you balance those? You don't. You actually just have 2 separate resources. So we have, whenever you level up, you put points into your active skills and you also put points into your passive skills. Active skills can still be used in scripted interactions and conversations. It's just that we also know that you're getting a gameplay bonus out of them. So I think people will probably be happy with the range. It's
cool.
It's like, I can't remember exactly how many, but it's like between
17.
17. It's a lot.
17. Yeah, there's a lot of skills.
It's quite a bit. And of course, we may fold those into each other if we find we're not getting enough leverage and use out of them. But we did have a focus on really trying to make it feel like, yeah, this is a lot more specific and less basic and generic or like kind of homogenized.
Any news on the PayPal-powered backer portal? We're working on it. Hopefully we'll have it up and running. Hopefully by the end of the campaign or soon after the campaign. The FIG campaign has ended.
Could you share some of the multi-classes names? I'm throwing a few out every once in a while. After this, I'll tweet a few more of them. Some of them are really stupid. So like I go back through, I mean, there are 55 of them. So sometimes I go back through them and I go like, yikes. But I'll tweet out a few more of them. I've seen a lot of good suggestions, by the way, like stuff I hadn't thought of just from the community. So thanks for that stuff, because it's tiring trying to name all those combos. It's cool, but it's hard. Will you have random travel traps like in Baldur's Gate had, where enemies attack you when you travel around cities?
We'll have more information for you soon. We can't say anything about it yet. Wink, wink.
There's some cool stuff. There's actually some really cool stuff. Adam, it's been talked about how hard environments have been to make. At what point does it actually become harder and more expensive to do 2D pre-renders as opposed to 3D environments?
It's an interesting balance right now. I think we're almost at the point where we're almost at a point where we can't really do too much to the 2D renders anymore. We're still trying to get as much as we possibly can out of Maya and the renders. But I think one thing that it gives us, as opposed to making a 3D game, is one, the system requirements are still really low, which is great, so more people can play the game. And we can push more polys through the 2D renders than the 3D renders. So, we can still have 1 million polys in the scene, and it won't affect the GPU at all.
Yep. What's the plan regarding transferable bonus talents from Pillars of Eternity? This would be things like Gift from the Machine or the Blood Pool, the effigy bonuses. If you do transfer some of them, I'd suggest making them available only through Bareth's Blessing, or to put these talents into the character's level up talent pool, selectable at appropriate levels. Those things are still around, but it is notable that Aeth has drained a lot of stuff from you, so some of those things will not be part of you at the beginning of the game. So exactly how you get them back is something you'll find out in the course of the story. Where are we? Up here? Okay. How deeply will the Watcher be able to bond with companions? Will there be romances? So we are making our companions a lot more in depth. We have plans for making them like much more in depth, and we're going to be talking about that
really soon. Yeah.
Will we see many NPCs in the world that are just souls to touch with walls of text for their backstory? Will any of these NPCs instead have VO'd soul stories? So a lot of those NPCs that were in the first game were backer NPCs, and we didn't communicate very well to people like, yeah, these are backers, and that's what these things are about. It's not really as big of a focus for us. Usually that will be part of a quest or something. You're still a Watcher, and you're still able to see those things, and it's still an important part of the story in many quests. So that will still be that way, but it won't be like, hey, there's a guy standing on a street corner, let me just go learn all about his life story. How do class power sources interact with the growth of secondary stats that were class dependent in Pillars 1, like accuracy, health, and defenses? That's something that we're still trying to figure out, to be honest. That's something that the system designers and I have had various debates about, but we're not settled on anything yet, because it is a tricky thing to figure out.
What new system are you the most proud of or excited about? For me, it's hard to say one thing. Like, the entire package is amazing. Just like the graphics are out of this world. I'm super impressed with the character art and the environment art of the game, but all the gameplay systems as well. Like, there's a lot of other stuff that we're being mum about right now that I'm really excited about. So hopefully we can share that stuff near the end of the campaign with you guys.
For me, it's just refinements to the systems overall. There's no new one thing that's really super crazy. I mean, there is some stuff that we still have left to talk about that I think people will find very exciting. Really, though, for me, I'm just excited that we're able to kind of refine a lot of the stuff that we had in the first game and make it stronger and better for gameplay. Are you introducing quivers? Is one-handed only a strong option this time? We keep trying to sort of balance the pros and cons of the various fighting styles, whether it's one-handed, two-handed. Yes, I have seen the stuff about bashing shields. We're going to look into that, why bashing isn't working the way it's supposed to. It's not supposed to be crappy. So we'll look at one-handed style again. I think we did improve it toward the end of Pillars 1 in one of the patches, but I guess that some people still feel it's not really as worthwhile. So we're going to look at it again, yeah. Are you keeping or perhaps expanding the personal reputation system? I love that in the first game. Yes, we are going to expand it. There are some slight modifications we've made to it. For example, the deceptive reputation, which sounded a little too... Like, deceptive is the thing where if you earn a reputation for it, you kind of shouldn't, because you're good. Like, I'm good at lying to people, so how do people know I'm deceptive? So one thing we've tried to do is, if you tell a lie that no one is ever going to figure out and you get away scot-free, we don't increase deceptive. Well, we don't actually have deceptive anymore. Instead, we have something called shady, where you tell a lie or like a half-truth and you kind of get away with it. But people go like, I don't know, that didn't really seem right. So instead of having deceptive, you have shady. Also, we are tracking your individual reputations between you and your companions with each other. And that's something that'll go into in an update pretty soon.
All right. Thank you, Josh and Adam, for taking the time and answer all these questions. Thank you, chat, for providing such awesome questions over Twitter and the forums and here in chat. We'll definitely do this again next Wednesday. We're going to have another Q&A stream. And so thank you guys very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.